I have shared with each of you the Earth Charter document. I don't know whether you had the chance to have a look at it, but I'll just share a brief description about it. As you are, each of you, aware of that, we are living in a period of critical moment in Earth's history, a time that we have to act so we can have a better future that we all want to live in good conditions, in good Earth conditions. As the world becomes increasingly interdependent and fragile, the future at once holds great peril and great promise. To move forward, we must recognize that in the midst of a magnificent diversity of cultures and life forms, we are one human family and one Earth community with a common destiny. The possibilities of future concerns may come, and we all have to be prepared to work together and come up with concrete actions to challenge this as human beings. We need to come up with long-term answers to deal with environmental issues, need to investigate biodiversity's role, and we should really aim for sustainable development, educate ourselves, and together work for concrete actions to help to solve local, national, and worldwide challenges. So we must join together to bring forth a sustainable global society founded and on respect for nature, universal human rights, as well as economic justice and a culture of peace. Towards this end, it is imperative that we, the peoples of Earth, declare our responsibility to one another, to the greater community of life, and to future generations. So I think, Greshma, you have accepted on your shoulders the hardest part of all these webinars, where we're going to discuss about Earth Charter, which involves also the Peace Charter in it. And I'm very much looking forward to your presentation. So I would like to invite you now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Seda. And yeah, thank you so much for having this space. And thanks to all for joining for this conversation. So today we are going to discuss about Earth Charter. It's a visionary document. So for this presentation, I will be talking why Earth Charter is a visionary document and how we can use it and how we can use that for doing the local climate actions. So this is the things we are going to discuss today. So I hope you all get time to read Earth Charter, and we shared that in the email. So if you can open that Earth Charter, please do. So we will read together and we will reflect it. So yeah, please. And also, I will start with my personal story, how I came to know Earth Charter and how I become a Earth Charter young leader. So in the year 2019, I did my graduation in International Peace Studies at the University for Peace, Costa Rica. During that time, I came to know about Earth Charter. And then I read about Earth Charter, and also the Secretariat of Earth Charter is based at Costa Rica and at the campus of University for Peace. So during that time, it was like a wonderful learning experience. And I was a peace studies student, and before that, I introduced myself as an interfaith peace builder. And then when I read Earth Charter, I found that the fourth pillar of Earth Charter is democracy, nonviolence, and peace. So whenever we heard the word Earth Charter, we normally see or think that this will be a document related to nature. But when I saw the fourth pillar is about democracy and peace, I wonder how it comes under Earth Charter. So I was very curious to know and explore how peace is related to nature and how the impacts and how it reflects. So I applied for an internship at the Secretariat of Earth Charter, and I got that. And during my internship period, one of the tasks were to find out the impacts of 20 years. So they were celebrating their 20th anniversary. So they asked me to find the impacts, like how Earth Charter impact people, how Earth Charter impact the movement. So I was in charge of doing that, and I read all the 20 years of reports, and I found that how interesting it is, how people use Earth Charter as a guideline or as a compass to explore and to do more sustainable activities. So that actually influenced me to take actions on at the ground level, and that eventually like eventually created EcoPeace Café. So EcoPeace Café is really inspired by the pillars of Earth Charter, and we design all the modules according to the Earth Charter principles. So in my life, Earth Charter has a big role. So for today's presentation and today's session, we are going to explore together how we can use this document for our daily life and how we can integrate this into our professional and personal life. So let's begin this journey. And as always, we will having a dialogue session. So I really need your participation, and I really need your interactions and more comments. So let's begin. So Natalia, please, next slide, please. Yeah, so Earth Charter is a visionary document, and it has 4 pillars and 16 principles. And we say that Earth Charter is powering a global movement. So I would like to take you the history of Earth Charter and how it formed. Earth Charter is a global document which consists of 16 principles, and the talk or the initiative started. The initiative actually started in 2000, but the consultation process were started during 1995. And even before that, in 1987, when UN World Commission on Earth and Development called for a new charter to guide the transition to sustainable development. So since then, the work was there, and there were like lots of consultation process were happening. And the visionaries, Michael Gorbachev and Maurice Strong, were the leaders who work for this charter. And there were like hundreds of consultations happened in all those years. And there were like separate NGO forums, and national level consultations were there, local and regional level consultations were there. So as you know, like there were like lots of UN documents and lots of UN charters are there. And what was the speciality of Earth Charter documentation is that like people were involved a lot. This Earth Charter has the voice of people, and it record it, and it or adopted the voice of people. So that's the difference between other charters and Earth Charter. And also the writings of Maurice Strong and Gorbachev were sharing that during the entire process, they feel the speciality of like collecting together and seeing the interdependence in forming this Earth Charter. So when we read UN Charter, we can see how the states are connected, how the nations are connected. And when we read the human rights, the Declaration of Human Rights, we can see how the individual rights and states are connected. When you read Earth Charter, we can see the connection between people and nature. So that's the speciality. So this is the document which really talks about ethical values and how all life forms, not just humans connected to nature, but all life forms and ecosystem connected to nature. So while reading the Earth Charter principles, I really love the way it describes, and the love the way how the principles and sub-principles help us to act. So each and every sentence gives us more inspiration to take actions and also reflect on how we live and how the lifestyle of our lifestyle impact and impact the ecosystem. So that's the real speciality of Earth Charter. Next slide. Um, yeah, pillar 1. So pillar 1 talks about respect and care for the community of life. So if you read the Earth Charter principles, you can see the pillar 1 has 4 principles, and it talks about how to respect and care for the community of life. And in the next slide, you can see these 4 4 principles which talks about respect earth and life in all its diversities. And the principle 2 states that care for the community of life with understanding, compassion, and love. And the third principle talk about build democratic societies that are just, participatory, sustainable, and peaceful. The fourth principle talks about secure Earth's beauty for present and future generations. So these are the 4 principles under the pillar 1. So I would like to hear like how you think, like how can we show the respect and um how can we show the respect towards the life forms and to our communities. So yeah, please feel free to unmute and share like how can we show or respect. Yeah,
we have one raised hand. Victor, would you like to answer what actions?
Okay, hope I'm audible.
yes, Victor.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation, Greshma. And it's so wonderful to see that each time I look into the Earth Charter pillars and principles, I'm always glad to see that such principle existed. To me, if the whole world can embark on this principle, the world will definitely become a better place. I'm a transformed person because I got to know this principle of Earth Charter, and it's so beautiful. Now, looking at the respect for the community of life, which is the first, followed by the nature's integrity. One thing I understand about the first principles, the first pillar with these principles is that they are all bonded and linked together in a chain. So if we have to talk about interdependence of all life, what it implies is I know that I can't do everything by myself. Just like a Nigerian usual proverb that said, the day you were born, you weren't the one that birthed yourself. And the day you will die, you will not be the one that will bury yourself. So what it means is you will need people to survive. You will need systems to survive. You will need organizations to survive. So there is this nature-based wisdom that gives us the interconnectedness, not just to humans, but also to nature itself. So this first pillar is talking about interdependence that occur between all forms of life. And it's obvious that whenever we look around the world, it is obvious that the reason why we have the issues we are having, injustice, climate change, and the rest, is because humans fail to understand that it is more about echo and not ego. And it is more about the interdependence that exists and not just about ourselves. And this falls about to love. If you know that you are interdependent, you won't hurt your neighbor. And that's where love, which is the second principle, comes in. So the third is democracy and freedom. If you know that you are interdependent, you allow everybody live to do what makes their system work. And the last one is justice across generation. So we have to say that, okay, if we are interdependent, it means the next generation are totally dependent on the decisions we make as this current generation. And that is where the concept of sustainability and regeneration come into place. I don't really want to take more of Greshma's time, but I think I just have to just stop here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Victor, for explaining that. And as Victor said, like we can see from the principle, like the pillar one, we can say like close interconnectedness and interdependence, and how our decisions are going to affect the future generation, and how we can be more mindful regarding our decisions and environmental concern decisions. So in the following principles also, we can see such interconnections and how all are connected in one way or the other. So when we reflect on the COVID-19 also, like when we are having the pandemic time, we know and we experience that one's life and one's health is really important for others also. If one has one had the infection, then it easily get or spread to other ones. So it's individual as well as the community's responsibility to be like mindful about the precautions and how can we prevent the infections prevent the spread of infection. Like that, in every point of life we can see this kind of interconnections, and why we have to be more responsible for our future generations, not just future generations, but our current society also. So Earth Charter tells us how to respect and how to care, like more than like how to love others, not just humans, but the nature also. So that's about the pillar one. We can move to pillar two, ecological integrity. Here we are going to talk more about the environment and environment conservation. So the next slides, we are talking about how to protect Earth and how to restore the integrity of Earth's ecological systems, with special concern for biological diversity and the natural process that sustain life, and also how to prevent harm towards nature, and how to lead a sustainable lifestyle, and how to share this knowledge. So these are the principles that in the pillar two. And here we have to reflect on what are the environmental decisions we are taking. Are we mindful about our environment when we take a decision? Are we considering environment and eco-friendly, and how it aligns with the Earth Charter principles? So if we consider the principle number 5, it talks about how to protect and restore the ecological integrity, and establish and safeguard the nature and biosphere reserves, and also promoting the recovery of endangered species and ecosystem, and how to manage the use of renewable resources, and how to manage the extraction and use of non-renewable resources. So we can see the kind of things like how to protect Earth's diversity in the in the principle 5. And as well as when we dive deeper into each principles, it has more power, and it definitely, like, it says how to act and how to take action. So for the EcoPeace Café series, we always say that we have to have these dialogues. We need to talk, and after this talk, we need to take actions. So Earth Charter is a good guideline, and it acts as a compass on how to take actions in our daily life. So we have a very limited time. That's why I couldn't go into each of the sub principles. That's why I highly encourage you to read the Earth Charter properly and reflect on it. Take time to read Earth Charter and understand it. And when you read from your perspective, and also how you are going to communicate with the communities you are working with, or at the family. And after reading the Earth Charter, please take time to sit with your family members and share what you learned from it, so they can also use Earth Charter principles in their work. And also, if you have kids or if you are working with school students, please inform them about what sustainability is. So UNESCO adopted Earth Charter as an ethical guideline for sustainable development. As we are living in the period of achieving sustainable development goals, Earth Charter is an ethical guideline on inspiring us to how to take actions and how to commit ethically to our needs. And I always say that Earth Charter is kind of Bible for me on reflecting on how I work and how I do like environment related work and how I communicate with the children. So yeah, so please take time to reflect on Earth Charter and please use it in your work and in your professional life. So anyone would like to share any environmental decisions you recently take, like reducing the consumption of plastic or using more renewable energy like that? It would be great if you can share it with us. Any environmental decisions. That means like what kind of decisions you take recently to be like more eco-friendly or more like focusing on sustainable lifestyle.
Shall we do again the little game that we had played? I can start and then I can pick a name and we go it that way. Sorry for being the starter. Well, I'm trying my best with adjusting into different, more sustainable lifestyles, but I think I'm failing. Recently, I'm trying to use more and more online forms, which are like Google Docs, Google Links, instead of using different documents that take more and more internet capacity and internet speed. Since I've learned that internet and internet speed and all of the data that we share with each other obtains a lots of negative environmental effects, I've started trying to change my way of sharing documents into sharing just document links. So that is one thing I've changed. I want to continue with Nelly. If you may share Nelly.
Thank you so much. I think that I take the decision to read the visionary document, each chapter. After that, I will take the action with you to sharing for them which is contained in this document. Yes.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nelly. And anyone else? Abarna?
Expected my name. Well, I was trying to think. It was I don't know how, when you said recent, that's what tripped me up a bit, because I think some of the stuff that I've been doing has just been like just unconscious life choices, I would say, in terms of well, not having a personal vehicle and pretty much just living on public transport all the time. And so when it comes to local shopping, and I think that's the next thing it led to, was due to lack of not having made the choice not to drive not to drive, not everywhere, just not drive. We've taken to shopping locally. So because for example, the shop that sells like Indian groceries and Indian vegetables pretty much in the city. We live in the residential areas outside the city. And it's for one thing, initially when I went to the shops once or twice, it just didn't look very fresh. So that was the main decision why I decided not to go. And then you start learning about stuff like the miles and stuff, because it's one thing for dry groceries, because that they can just stock pile over months and stuff, and it's like lentils and rice and things. That's okay, that doesn't go bad. I mean, it's still miles, but still, when it comes to vegetables, they have to be, it's short duration, you can keep it fresh, so they have to harvest and bring these in flights and things, which can obviously lead to a lot of ecological issues when you're doing that many vegetables, keeping that fresh. So at least if you are buying local British vegetables, we are not contributing to that additional miles in that way. And that's also easily accessible by walk for me as well. So practically as well, it works for me. But one of the recently I had a very similar meeting. We were looking with the, I don't know if it's a Scottish organization. It's called the Ethnic Minority Environmental Network, and they were doing a consultation. And I just had a big rant about how all the grocery shops here, the UK grocery shops, they pack their vegetables in plastic bags. So it's like, you basically, for example, you go to the shops, for example, carrots, they just come as a 1 kg plastic bags. You can't just grab vegetables to the quantity you want. And it's such a waste, because I say, for example, all these, in a week, I use these many different types of vegetables. I have to throw away at least 3 or 5 types of plastic bags, and they're not recyclable plastics as well. So, but I don't have a choice. It's what every shop does this. So it's not like I can go to any shop. At least I haven't found that is accessible to me, at least, that it can this thing. But when it does come, I'm looking forward to the day where I can buy vegetables without the plastic bags. But I think shopping locally and using public transport, that's possibly, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Abarna, for bringing that to the conversation also. Like, I also use public transportation, and and also like buying more local products, and also considering about the usage of clothing. So, like, normally we buy lots of clothes that also affect the nature badly. And also I remember once I had a conversation with Unity Earth. There was a presentation regarding like how the child labor is happening like in the clothing industry. Like they use like children to do the dyeing and all the like manufacturing the clothing material. So when we are using cloth, we have to be like mindful about what's happening, as I shared earlier, like how we all are interdependent, and how we are like giving like the contribution to the nature, like whether it's good or bad, it's always affect the communities. So yeah, that's about this pillar, and we can move to the next pillar. Pillar 3 talks about social and economic justice. And in this pillar, we have 4 principles which talks about eradicates poverty, equitable human development, gender equality and equity, and dignity, inclusion and well-being. So in these pillars, we can think about the economic development of countries and how we are seeing equality and equity in our societies, and how we can ensure the economic activities and institutions at all levels promote human development in an equitable way. And also we need to affirm gender equality and equity as a prerequisite to sustainable development, and ensure universal access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. And the principle 12 talks about how to uphold the right of all without discrimination to a natural and social environment, supportive of human dignity and spiritual well-being. So these are the 4 principles in the social and economic justice. So each principle talks about how to ensure equitable distribution and how to enhance the financial and technical resources of developing nations, and also how to ensure that all trade supports sustainable resources use and environmental protection and progressive labor standards. So this all can be reflected on these pillars, social and economic justice. So yeah, like can you please consider some recent news related to economic justice, and how might charter principles offer insight into addressing those challenges that are highlighted in this event? So yeah, so it would be great if some of you can share your insights on that. Like, do you see any connections with any recent economical situation or social situation in your place, and how we can relate that to the Earth Charter principles?
Yeah, actually, when you were just talking about this, something came to mind. It was something I just saw today, actually. During lunch, I was watching this video, like it was on YouTube, a National Geographic episode. It was just a random episode that showed up. And it was talking about this village in Tamil Nadu in India. I mean, some of you might have heard of it. I don't know. It's a completely sustainable village near Coimbatore. So essentially, what happened was it used to be like a really impoverished, like I'm saying, I think about in early 1990s, so 92, 93, around that time, it was just full of huts. They had no electricity, water, nothing. Like it was a really bad state of being, and people basically started migrating out of that place. So this is somewhere near the Nilgiris, and people, lack of resources, so people were just migrating out of it. And then this one man, when he became the head of the village, so that's the panchayat, head of panchayat, we would say in the Indian system. He started exploring these different what are the options to keep the build up the village and everything. And if you look at, I'll share the video link in the chat, maybe after this you can look it up. Essentially what he did is he brought in, like, basically all he did was, it's not like he would put in personal resources or anything. He was a rich man who put personal resources or anything. No, it was just good planning, basically, in terms of getting access to a lot of government funds, like all the different central government and local government, whatever funds and subsidies that the government was offering. He encouraged the people to apply for it. He applied for it as the thing. They built a windmill and the village. And now it's like a proper planned village with proper water resources, and every single house has solar panels in it. And like they've built each house to the same specifications, so they all look equal. I mean, and they've built, every house has solar panel in it, and they actually now the windmill generates, because it's near the hill, and it's actually quite a windy place, so they've made use of that. And the wind energy that they're producing, they're producing excess to their requirements, and they're selling it back to the government for about what is it now, I would say 20 lakhs, I think they said, rupees in they're making for the village. So they're actually getting an income for the village in that. So I think it's important. Where I was thinking is, so he was thinking in a he was thinking about the environment as well, and the local area as well. And now people are migrating back to the village, people who left the village, because it's increased employment opportunity, therefore there's no poverty there. Women are not having to walk long distances to get water or anything, because all that is being there, and they're being educated. So I think it pretty much covers that particular story of that village, pretty much covers all 4 of the principles here. And it was a very like, people now are coming to study the village model and things like that. And I think it's one of the ways to keep these pillars going strongly is knowledge sharing. So when successful projects like this happen, it's important that the knowledge about how it became successful and how it can be implemented in other places has to be shared.
Yeah, thanks, Sabarna, for sharing that, and also how the four pillars still important to do the economic and social justice to the communities. And yeah, like as you mentioned, like we are going through lots of challenges, and still we need to remember this is something that that come up in 2000, and still all the issues are there, and all the crisis we are having is still here. So that's why it's I always call like Earth Charter is a living document. So it's useful for all the generations to reflect on and also act on. But while we are having the education process, like while we go through the education process at our schools or colleges, normally like I'm talking about myself, like I don't really know anything about the sustainable development or how to take actions. So this principles really giving us an opportunity to reflect and communicate it with the school students, or integrate this work to the education system. And many countries are doing that, and many universities are integrating Earth Charter principles to their curriculum. So here we are having 10 members. So please use Earth Charter principles in your work, and most of you are working with faith communities. So it's really good if you can communicate the importance of Earth Charter principles with the faith communities, because it's also gives an element of spirituality, which also connects Earth Charter always connects both spirituality and ethics to our daily life, like reflecting on the spiritual needs as well. So yeah, please use a charter to find solutions, and not just finding solution ourselves, but communicating these solutions and taking actions for a better tomorrow and creating changes. And now we are moving forward to the pillar 4, the last pillar. It's talking about democracy, non-violence, and peace. And the 4 principles are strengthening democracy and integrate values into education, and respect all living beings, and spread non-violence and peace. So as a peace builder, this principle is the principle 16 is more close to me, like how to do non-violence act and how to do peace education. So I use Earth Charter as a guideline for doing my peace education work. I reach out to schools and use Earth Charter to bring together people. And one of the story that really inspired me is the story of Sierra Leone. After the conflict, they used Earth Charter for the reconciliation. So the young people in Sierra Leone bring group of ex-combatants in the same room and have dialogue by using Earth Charter principles. They use Earth Charter as a as a tool for having the dialogue and sharing something and reflect on it, that really bring greater impacts, and that really change the situation of that community and bring more peace in the communities. So that's about the piece, and let's dive deeper into how a charter acts as a tool for sustainability. We can move to next slide. Next slide, please. So as I said, a charter is it reflects how we all are like interdependent and how we all are interconnected. So and for example, we can say that when we say about interconnectedness, we can think about honeybees or the pollinator insects. If there is an extinction happen for this pollinator insect, like we know definitely there will be no life forms. So from a very small life form, that will affect the existence of the full life form. So that's how we are connected. So the interconnectedness of environmental, social, and economic issues and underscore the need for a holistic approach to sustainability. So Earth Charter gives the spirit and all the essence of how all the issues are interconnected. Normally, people focus on one or two principles and they completely focus on that principles and work on it. But through EcoPeace series of dialogues, we are trying to address all the pillars and all the 16 principles, because I personally feel that in our life, it's very important to understand how we can care and how we can respect the community, and how it is essential on how to protect and how to preserve the environment, and also talking about social and economic justice, and also talking about peace. So I always believe this is a chain and we need to complete the chain. That's why all our series of dialogues have the essence of Earth Charter, and like we highlight the themes of social justice, peace building, and environment together. And Earth Charter principles serve as a gate for decision making and policy development to achieve a more just and sustainable world. So this is very important. We need to use Earth Charter as a decision making thing, like as how the commandments act, or how the religions use their holy scriptures. We can use Earth Charter for making the decisions, and we can communicate this to the younger generation. Why? Because they are the future leaders and they are the CEOs of companies. So we need to educate them how to use the renewable resources and how not to use the non-renewable resources and how to extract them. So then only they will be mindful about taking decisions when they are in the leadership position. So we cannot go back to the past and correct it, but we can think about the future and make good decisions for our future generation, and encourage individuals, communities, governments, business, and organizations to adopt values and practices and that prioritize the well-being of the planet and all inhabitants. It's very important. So please, when you go back after this session, please reflect on Earth Charter principles, and please find the ways on how to use it and how to create more useful and more sustainable things for our communities. Next slide, please. So empowering communities for positive change. As I mentioned, these are my EcoPeace Team Cafe activities. We do dialogue sessions and we host training programs for young people, and we work with different religious youth groups, and also we plant trees for the betterment of world and for the betterment of the society. So we try to communicate the messages, and we always have guest speakers to talk and their experiences, and we always communicate how to take the initiative from other countries to our countries, like taking all the good initiatives and using or adopting it and use it according to our local context. So that's why we use all the activity, like use these dialogues to inspire and encourage young people, and not just young people. We need all the peoples to work together. And next slide. So here we are giving you some examples on how local governments, universities, indigenous communities, and national development plans, and how Earth Charter connecting young people. So for example, if we are taking about local governments, there are some organizations which integrates Earth Charter principles to their work, and they encourage local governments to adopt Earth Charter for their for almost all their works, and like while taking the decisions, how to take the decisions in a sustainable way. And also universities adopt Earth Charter as part of their curriculum, and they have like special modules focusing on Earth Charter, and Earth Charter Secretariat also helping them to implement these programs. And indigenous communities, as you are, if you read the Earth Charter, you can see there is a special mention of indigenous communities in the Earth Charter principle itself. So indigenous communities also integrate Earth Charter principles in their lifestyle, and they use that to communicate, and they find the inspiration from the Earth Charter in conserving and preserving nature. And also in national development plans, we can see countries like Mexico and countries like Spain use the Earth Charter in different ways. And there are some examples from Spain how they integrate Earth Charter in their schools and in their curriculum system to train the students. So educators love Earth Charter principles, and we can, like, if we say like a ninth grade teacher can use Earth Charter, a foreign language teacher can use Earth Charter, and a university professor can use Earth Charter to communicate their children in different way. And a social teacher can use the social justice elements and communicate that with the students. So this is how Earth Charter used in diverse ways. And Earth Charter Secretariat and Earth Charter principles are are really inspiring young people. And like we have like lots of Earth Charter young leaders are working together for a better world. We have Victor here, so we can move to next slides, and then we can hear from Victor how he used Earth Charter for his local climate actions. Next slide, please. So here are some of the Victor's activity. He trains students, and he's the founder of Wikipedia. Like, it's a different team which shares about information regarding the climate actions. And he has a campaign called Planting Birthday Tree, and like a plastic free campaign is there, and lots of work is happening in Nigeria. And he has some climate storytelling sessions. So I would like to hear from Victor about his work. Victor, can you share how you find the inspiration from Earth Charter to implement activities at your local communities?
Oh, Greshma, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. And I want to thank the entire management and your wonderful organization for coming up with this. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, Victor is.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. And one thing that really motivates me. Okay, I think my video is turned on now, right? But it's a little bit dark. That's why I had to turn it off. But let me just stay online with it like this. I hope it's okay like this.
Yeah, it's fine, Victor.
Okay. One of my greatest motivation is how do we really put basically the grassroots community into action? How do we turn whatever knowledge you had into solving the problem? Because the problem we are having are not just global problem, they are also local problems that need local solution to solve them. So we got into many processes, and after taking the LSC course, joined the Earth Charter, we started a wonderful movement. And I think this is my 8 years as an environmental educator. So we started this movement, and we thought, okay, there will be need to reach out to schools. How do we teach these schools? Because over here, climate change, its impact, we see them as just God's perspective of punishing humanity. So it's a very long process, and it's a very not funny one, but we started this great move, and gradually we initiated the Earth Storytelling Club. So what we do is we reach out to various schools, and tell them, okay, this is what we want to really do. This is what we want to really do. And we partnered with that school. And currently, I think we have almost 16 schools on our registry that we move around to educate the learners on the impact of climate change and the solution thereabouts. So we gave them one of the solutions, which has been so very sustainable. So on every child's birthday, we dedicated that every person involved in our team, 25% of your salary goes into getting trees for these children on their birthday. And everybody in the team agreed. So we are entitled to give these children a birthday tree on their birthday. So this tree is actually a fruit tree. So the role of that child is to nurture this tree, watch this tree grow till maturity. And this tree in return becomes a payback strategy to provide for humanity food and even the child. So it was a wonderful movement. We started the plastic creativity, got involved in community cleanup projects, and so many things. The goal still remains the same, is that we promote sound environmental education, that every child, every adult, every young person, every old person will know that all of us together, we are responsible in making the world a better place. And that is just one thing we do at Wikipedia, promoting sound environmental education. And this has been what we've been doing using the Earth Charter principles. These Earth Charter principles, respect to the community of life and ecological integrity, were the basic two that I've worked with over the years. And I'm glad to see that every part of these pillars and principles have been very effective. And thanks, Greshma, for having me share a lot. There are so many things I would have want to share, but I don't really want to take our time. But I will be glad to say that we do so many work. There is so much to be done, connecting peace movement, connecting environmental activities. And I believe that together, every organization putting in their effort will say that we, with our eyes and with everything around us, will say that yes, we are contributing our quota to make the world a better place. So Greshma, I'm so grateful. Natalia and everyone, thanks for the opportunity. And I look forward to see how we can do greater things in Nigeria and beyond as the time goes on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Victor, for sharing and for joining
Hello.
this session. Yeah, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, okay, thanks. Yeah, thank you so much, Victor, for joining this session and share your work. And I hope this work inspire many of the participants and inspire them to take initiatives. And yeah, like I'm sure like everyone has lots of idea, but there is some kind of like worries, like how to start an initiative, like am I able to start? But I would say like just take the first step and then you will see amazing things are coming up. So that happened with me. Like when I started EcoPeace Teen Café, I have this initial doubts like how to implement, and I have this these ideas, but how to implement that. But then I gained the courage and then I started, and then I got support from everywhere and lots of people coming together and encourage us to do more. And Victor is one of them. And Victor also initiated lots of activities after attending the leadership sustainability course. So we learned that Earth Charter and its applications from the Earth Charter people, and how this education like this education programs really helped us to reflect on. So yeah, that's about the Earth Charter principles and how to implement activities using Earth Charter principles. We can go to the next slide. So now it's time for breakout sessions. We planned for 15 minutes, but we are going to reduce that. We can be in breakout sessions with like in 10 minutes, and please take time to read Earth Charter and select one principle, and please share it in the group, like why you like that principle and how that connects to your life, and how you plan to take some actions on that principle. So as we are a small group, I think Eda, you can like create a group with 2 people, like pair.
Two. Shall I was thinking of 3, but would you like in pairs?
Yeah, maybe in pairs will be good, like us, we just have 10
Perfect.
minutes.
I'll do that.
So,
Yeah.
so each person can take 5 minutes and
Mm.
5 minutes to share and 5 minutes to listen.
Okay. I'm opening them now.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the main room. And now the floor is yours. You can share your thoughts here, and I'm eagerly waiting to hear from you which principle you like the most and what are the actions you really wanted to take. So yeah, we have the time to reflect and also share. So please feel free to unmute and share. The time is yours.
I can go first. I don't mind. So Cindy and I were having a great discussion actually, and we was a breakout room finish before we could finish. But I think what stood out for me with all the principles of all of them was the second one, and particularly the praise. Sorry, the particularly the phrase care for the community of life with understanding, compassion, and love. And why that stood out to me mostly was because of the whole thing. It says community of life rather than just community, because for me at least, the tendency, and I think I've noticed this in most people, when we use the word community, we tend to think of, the people, like community of just the your local community, your neighbors, the people living in your area, or people who are part of your faith or ethnic community or something like that. That's what the general tendency is to think about. But when I saw the phrase community of life, it I had to stop, and I was thinking about, it's the ecological community. It's not just the people, it's the whole ecosystem that is your the little sparrow that's in my garden right now, or the robin in my garden, or the plants that are growing, all that's also part of the community. And so when I think one of the things from now I definitely will take away from now is try to see it as a community of life always, and not just as community, because nothing wrong in thinking about people, but I think it's always good to think about the bigger picture, the whole encompass thing. So maybe look at it as, the community of life, how all these activities or anything that happens, how is it affecting the community of life as opposed to just a community.
Yeah, thanks, Abarna. Thank you for sharing and thinking about community of life, and not just humans, but including all the community of life. And thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And anyone else? And Muhammad? Or Nadalia? Muhammad, are you?
Yeah, may I audible? Am I
Yes,
audible?
yes, please.
Yeah, I have discussed with Ms. Natalia. I have selected and I'm interested in the topic of democracy one. I think it's the second or the third one. So for me, the Earth Charter discusses and underscores the pivotal role of democracy in sustainable development, like emphasizes the importance of the participatory decision making and accountable, and the inclusion of diverse perspective. I before discuss this in diverse perspective. So, for example, I would like to share some mediums to contribution for the contribution, like voting, and the most important is the one advocacy groups. So we must be, especially the South Asia region, we must join and support the environmental organizations to ensure that collective voices and influences the policies and regulations. For example, recently I would like to quote an example. The global climate strikes are organized by youth activists like Greta Thunberg demonstrated that the power of democratic expressions. For example, people from all over the we can say the young and the old ones walk of the life joined these strikes, calling on governments to take meaningful action against the climate change. So this one was the interesting one. And the other one is non-violence. The Earth Charter promotes a culture of non-violence, urge the respect for our life forms and fostering understanding and compassion. I would like to share some of the contributions and mediums, for example, education, teaching non-violent conflict resolution and empathy in schools, especially in schools and colleges, to cultivate a generation that value peaceful coexistence. So we are coping up with the next generation, the upcoming challenges. So we must be optimistic and must teach our upcoming generation to cultivate value and peaceful coexistence. For the contribution and the medium, I would like to share a social media is a powerful tool. Using platforms for spreading awareness about the non-violent movements and inspiring positive change in the world. For example, recently the Green Belt movement in Kenya, led by the Wangari, used this peaceful protest and community-based initiative to address environmental and degradations of women empowerment. So that's it from my side. I think we have much less time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed, for sharing about democracy and the need of educating young people on non-violence and how to practice it and how to promote a culture of peace. So yeah, thank you so much. And any other thoughts? We have 5 more minutes. Natalia, do you want to share anything?
So for me, what was interesting when I was looking at the subject of Earth Charter, so I saw a diagram where they visualized all of the 4 principles, and it was like it looked like a flower, and the first principle of respect and care for the community of life, it was a central piece as like this, like the flower has I forgot the word, but anyway, it was central, and all the other principles, they were like leaves of this flower. And so it just showed that actually community and the respect and care are actually at the center. So if we don't have it, so actually all the other principles won't work. So anyway, it's just my take on it. And I really enjoyed discussing our discussion with Mohammed, and especially that I asked him like, okay, so you introduced, or I mean, you get to know these principles, but what would be your next steps? And it was interesting that he shared that actually he would love to join activist groups, like eco justice activist groups, and I would also like spread the word and educate and bring the awareness among his student community and beyond. So I think it's really like, it was inspiring to talk to him and to see that he has this fire to actually use it, and he saw the importance of it.
Yeah, thanks, Natalia. And yeah, like we did this illustration during the 20th anniversary, like giving all the principles, having like a pictorial representation during the 20th anniversary. And that time I was with them at the secretariat, so I was like seeing like how they work and the brainstorming of how to create all these forms. And yeah, and it's amazing resource on how to take actions. It really helped to brainstorming, and by reading each principles we will get more idea like on how to implement activities at the ground level. So as a follow-up of all the EcoPeace sessions, we can we can implement activities in our own local communities as a follow-up. So please stay tuned with us. And Cindy, do you like to share anything, like closing thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Greshma. I think especially in the little discussion that I had with Aparna, the idea that whatever conviction we latch onto, the one thing that is very important is the spirit of stewardship. It's more prevalent in the Christian church because we are stewards of the earth. We are not owners. We don't own. It's given to us by the Almighty. And being a steward, how is that different from just being anybody? It's that you actually have the responsibility. So you drive at that responsibility until you achieve. So if it is whatever means that we have talked about, either in single-use plastics or in, revving up your politicians to do whatever, it is that responsibility, that drive, that makes the Earth Charter live, I think, because we are all agreed here that we should be doing something, but do we let it go without getting there? So if the stewardship, it's something that we take on seriously, then everything kind of falls in place, whether it's the community of people who are living, or if you're finding a different place, or you are one petal of the flowers that you've made in your illustrations, which is a beautiful allegory, that we need to get together to decide what it is that we can do and then go and do it. That's my take for the day. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Cindy, for sharing that and inspiring us to take actions. And yes, let's do it. And yeah, and so we are almost on time, and I would like to close this meeting with by reading the way forward of a charter, and as it says that, as never before in history, common destiny beckons us to seek a new beginning. Such renewal is the promise of this Earth Charter principles. To fulfill this promise, we must commit ourselves to adopt and promote the values and objectives of the Charter. So this Earth Charter is for us, for all the life forms. So let's commit to Earth Charter and find inspiration, and let's live through this Earth Charter. So thank you so much for joining this session, and let's meet on 23rd for finding the innovative ways for waste management, as we are in a big crisis of managing waste. So let's learn from Macron. He will join us from Nigeria on 23rd. So please stay tuned.